Hi there, we are live from Midtown Comics downtown for our exclusive signing with Frank Miller and Klaus Janson to commemorate the conclusion of the Dark Knight 3, the Master Race series. I am Henry, and we're going to be doing a live Q&A with our audience here. We have a wonderful audience that was very lucky to win a lottery raffle to attend this event. So first row, if you are all set, you can stand up, and we will get started with the Q&A portion of the event.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is John. It's very nice to meet you, Mr. Miller, Mr. Janson. We've actually met a few times.
Good to see you, John.
Right?
Hi, John.
Yeah.
And I also want to thank Midtown Comics for picking me. Thank you very much. Yeah. Right. So I have a question, Mr. Miller.
Mm-hmm.
You've had a lot of success in Hollywood,
Mm-hmm.
directing, writing, even acting, right? Mingling with.
Well, let's just stick to the directing and writing.
Well, I like them.
Thing.
Right. And I'm sure you have Jessica Alba in your speed dial. Probably too, right? Like mingling with celebrities and stuff. But I have a question. The
It
question
doesn't
is,
work that way.
what is it that brings you back to comics? Like you've had so much success in Hollywood. Why come back to comics? What is it about comics you love that keeps bringing you back home?
I love to draw. I adore drawing. And I mean, that's the biggest thing I could name. That and the absolute freedom in comic books are both wonderful things. But I think the physicality of drawing is something that I could never stop doing. Great question. Thanks.
Thank you. What do you guys plan on doing next?
We don't speak. But it's
We plan on keeping it that way. I think.
yeah. It's ever since what happened in that terrible car crash. But all doors are wide open right now. This project's been pretty consuming. So again, and what it is right now is that Klaus and I thoroughly enjoy working together, but both of us are able to work separately and together. So it's a delight. We don't need each other, but we enjoy working together.
Thank you very much.
You're
Sure thing.
welcome, John.
Hi, my name is Joseph. It's a pleasure to be here. Nice
Hey,
to meet
Joseph.
Hey,
both of you.
Joseph.
Last month I saw Batman and Bill, the documentary about Bill Finger,
Hmm.
that had Mark Tyler Nobleman. He had written the book, and he had sort of campaigned to get Bill credit as co-creator
Right.
of Batman. And I was wondering if either of you had seen it, and if you had any particular Bill Finger stories that you liked, any Batman stories written by Bill Finger.
Hmm.
Borrowing the origin and the first story, kind of listening to.
Well, haven't seen the documentary. No, I look forward to it. As far as Bill Finger stories are particularly liked, well, golly, there's a lot of early Batman stories I enjoy a lot. And as far as I know, they're all written by Bill Finger, so it's kind of hard to pick among them.
That's exactly the problem, is that he didn't get credit for so much of the work that he did and so many of the stories that he wrote. So it's hard to tell which stories he did write. But I'm glad he's getting some credit. I think it's a really good thing.
Yeah, the story, as I understand it, is repeated by many of the old timers, was that Bob Kane told the artist that he wrote it and told the writer that he drew it. I say no more.
It's sort of established in the film that Bob had an idea for a character that was dressed in a red leotard with
Yeah.
bat wings.
Well, he saw an old movie called Nosferatu, and some drawings that Michelangelo had done as an attempt toward creating a flying machine, and that is the story that he told. No one knows.
And I had read Batman and Me, that book that Bob Kane put out, and he had those drawings of sketches and that was actually disputed in the Batman and Bill film, where they actually put it over a light box and said, could this really be from 1934?
Mm-hmm.
It would have seems somewhat questionable.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of it is, these are ideas that are believed to have been Bill's contributions, that now Bob would have claiming that he had them in mind initially.
Well, I think you, sir, have a good project ahead of you. The thorough expose that clears all this up. Get to it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Jen. I'm a high school English teacher. Recently, my students have been asking me to bring in comics more into our curriculum. The school board has finally kind of decided they're on board with giving us a bit more flexibility, and I was wondering what your thoughts were on incorporating comics and comic anthologies into the high school classroom.
And what grade are you talking about? Sorry.
Juniors, so
Junior, yeah. Oh, I think incorporating comics is an excellent idea. A vast number of people learn to read in the first place by reading comics because they have pictures that help them, and the lettering is all in capitals and all of that. And it's a very good entry point for reading. And now, I'm very grateful for the number of comics that are actually written to a younger audience that are out there. In the meantime, there are classic delights like the Carl Barks Duck comics, and even more recent things like Jeff Smith's Bone, that are great entry points for youngsters.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nick from Rochester. It's been a trip to get here, but it's great to see you guys.
Okay.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming. I saw Batman begin in 2008. That's really when I started following Batman. And the first thing I did is go to Barnes & Noble and bought a copy of Year One, since I know that was pretty heavily influenced. I just want to know, like, seeing the panels of your books come to life. It doesn't have to be Batman, it could be Sin City. Like, it's got to be the most gratifying feeling. How do you guys feel when you see that? Or when you see that, is it like how you envision it? Is it better than you envisioned it? Or could you do somewhere in between?
Well, let me put it this way: it was a lot more exciting to see it done with Sin City because I got to do it. And Robert Rodriguez gave me the opportunity, and it was an amazing experience. With Batman Begins, it was more like I got invited and I got to see it, and that was exciting too. But actually having your hands in the stew, there's nothing like it. Yeah.
I saw the first 2 episodes of Daredevil season 1, and you haven't seen any of it.
No.
I've only seen the first 2, which I liked. But there was a scene that kind of snuck up on me, and it took place in Josie's bar. And that was a scene that both Frank and I had, an environment that both Frank and I had really designed and worked very hard on.
Yeah.
And it was very trippy seeing it.
Yeah.
It was a little surreal.
It would have been a kick to be on the set, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I
Oh,
agree,
yeah.
So it's it's fun to see, but it's a little unnerving, I have to say. It's like seeing a dream come true, which you don't really need to see that. It's weird.
It depends on the dream. Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome, Joseph. Oh, Nick. It's Nick, right?
It's Nick, yeah.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Moses. I'm a PhD candidate on Stony Brook, and I'm studying the work of Will Eisner. And I know that you study also his work, and you also follow his techniques and his theory. And I would like to ask you, because you also go beyond what Eisner theorized about. And I would like to ask you ever consider write about theory?
I haven't really planned any kind of book of my own. No, I prefer to just argue all the points with people. The book that I did with Will Eisner was, that was an extended argument, and very good things come out of an argument. But to actually sit down and write a textbook on the storytelling, I'm really too busy doing it.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
I will say, Moses, by the way, that one of the fun things about working with Frank is those arguments. Talking.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
And second row.
Hi, my name's Jenny. I've been thinking a lot lately, just watching the news, how we've kind of become more vocal with our, I don't know, maybe distrust or discomfort in people being above the law because of their wealth or their status. And I was wondering what you think maybe Batman's role going forward, or Bruce's role going forward, could be as people reading comics.
Is there anybody you can name that you can think of that was going a little above his station?
I would lose my job.
Oh, you wouldn't mention his hair color or nothing? Oh, okay.
Maybe like yellow.
Orange?
Hue, orange, somewhere in there. Yeah.
Yeah,
As we've
yeah.
grown more and more distrusting with that. do you
Kind of
think
carrot? Yeah, yeah.
That's a good one.
Like a fresh carrot that's just been cut? Yeah.
Do you think there's going to be a lot of conflict between Bruce as someone who's kind of on that level, maybe not in ideology, but in status, and what he's trying to do as Batman?
It depends on who's writing Batman. I obviously like to make my characters quite political, and some people don't. It's a different kind of approach. But yeah, if have my hands on Batman and he's swimming in those circles, which Bruce Wayne would, then of course there'd be all kinds of sparks flying.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Andrew. I'm really happy that Midtown switched their formats for these and went to the contest, to a raffle. My question's for Mr. Miller. So with the recent Dark Knight series, you got a chance to play with a whole bunch of different DC characters, and it made me wonder whether there were any Marvel characters that you never got a chance to work with that you would like to, or would have liked to do more with.
Yeah, there are. I like these guys who shrink, and Ant-Man would be a lot of fun. And I think Iron Man would be a kick. Especially, he's one of those characters who was reinterpreted and improved in the movies. And I think that the Iron Man pictures really gave him a whole new personality that was much needed, and updated him from the Cold War version he had before. Beyond that, I'm sure there are a bunch of others, but there are a lot of people waiting, so I don't know.
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah, staying on the topic of Marvel, do I need to hold it?
No, I got it.
I'm absolutely obsessed with your Daredevil run.
Oh,
and,
thank you.
It's like my favorite superhero comics
Thank you.
of all time.
We had a good time.
Well, my question is, if you could speak a little bit about your time on the character, and if there's anything you feel you would like to do further with the character, if had the chance.
Boy, I keel-hauled him about as much as any character could be. I dragged him around, I really think that I had my shot at that character. That I did my bit. I think that it's a particular chunk of my life. It's work that I'm really, really proud of. I think that we had just a blast of a time. We were on fire through that run. But no, I'm not drawn back to it.
You know, there's something to be said about leaving well enough alone. And I've had different opportunities to, or been asked to do Daredevil too, since Frank and I did it. And I always turned them down, except for when I did End of Days, Brian Michael Bendis and David Mack and Bill Sienkiewicz. And that was because it was a really, really good script. And I just couldn't imagine turning that down. But you really have to be careful because you don't want to dilute what you've done in the past, especially since we are so proud of what we did. And it was good work.
Yeah.
We had a lot of fun. Yeah.
And we learned a lot from each other. That was the main thing. That's what marks a good collaboration.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Richard. So both of you have worked on Batman for many, many years, and I was wondering, what is it that draws you back to the character?
He's just such a jolly, happy-go-lucky guy. I think for me the biggest thing that draws me to Batman in particular is that he's the Zorro of superheroes. He's what I mean by that is that he's the guy who can't fly. The best way to simplify it is that he's the guy who needs a car. I mean, so he's an effort character all the way, and that's what's always attracted me to him more than anything. He has to be the smartest guy in town because everybody else could beat him up.
I like the environment. Anything that's really
yeah.
dark, anything that's really kind of moody, where you can do lighting and, lightning bolts and stuff like that. I really love that kind of stuff. There's a lot of emotion you can get out of that setting. And I think that, to some degree, comics is really lacking in emotion. So, any opportunity to be able to introduce that is something I wouldn't pass up.
And he's also simple. No, the
That's
best
true.
characters are
True.
simple.
Yeah.
It's easy to make up a complicated character. I've done it. You don't remember them. But my good characters are the simple ones.
And a quick follow-up, since we asked the Marvel question, what DC characters would you guys like to collaborate on that you haven't done yet?
Superman.
That's a good answer. That's right. Frank, you've been particularly enthused about drawing Wonder Woman lately.
Yeah.
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 The stuff has been amazing. But immediately it's Andrew, right? Richard, I'm sorry. I'm always thinking about the last one.
Richard, Andrew.
Richard, and Richard's, the character that popped into my head was Plastic Man.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Is that right?
Wouldn't that be a kick?
I could see you really doing that.
Wouldn't that be a kick?
Yeah, it would be, I have to say, yeah.
I mean, the wonderful thing about Plastic Man is I hit on it in the Dark Knight run because I was always trying to sum up all the characters in as few words as possible. And the whole thing is, you read those Plastic Man stories, there's no question about it. He's unbelievably powerful and totally nuts. And what an amazing combination.
Yeah, it would be fun.
And also, he can turn into stuff. For decades, they got it wrong in Plastic Man comics because he kept on just being a guy who stretched like Mr. Fantastic. But no, the great thing about those old Jack Cole comics is that he was always, he'd turn into this microphone to disguise himself, and it would work.
Thank you, gentlemen.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'm Brad.
Hey, Brad.
I first picked up Dark Knight Returns when it came out, and I was 14. Do the math. And
We were older. Do the math.
You're complaining about it.
There you go. So I was interested.
Do the math.
It blew my mind. There was no comic out like it at the time, and it really redefined comics, and it redefined pop culture.
We're very sorry.
Yeah, well, what can you do? So my question to you is two parts. What is, Dark Knight pretty much made you world famous. What is the most interesting opportunity you got as a result of Dark Knight? And second question is, which celebrity surprised you the most by being a fan of Dark Knight?
Stephen King. Come on. The collection is quotes on the back of it. No, that came out of the blue. But what was the first question?
What was the most interesting opportunity you got as a result of writing, drawing, publishing Dark Knight?
I got hired to write my first screenplay. I never expected that.
That was RoboCop, right?
RoboCop 2. Please forgive me.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. What can I say? It made no sense.
Hi guys, I'm Joe.
Hey, Joe.
Hey,
Just
Joe.
read Dark Knight time. Published a lot academically, including a book from a finance perspective. But I'm currently writing my first novel, inspired by you both. So as a result, I'm just curious, especially following the RoboCop comment, what are some of the biggest mistakes you both have seen writers make over time?
The first one I'll leap to is that the biggest mistake any writer can make is not to know where they're going, to not know how your story's going to end. You've always got to know how it's going to end, even if you change your mind. You've got to be headed in a particular direction. That's the most frequent mistake. The other is falling in love with words and how pretty they are, because that can distract you from the substance of things, and all of a sudden your people don't sound like people.
It was the exact phrase that Frank said, people falling in love with their words. Too many words, just too many words. Comics is a visual medium, and it's a partnership between the words and the pictures, but the pictures, I think, are what makes a comic a comic. So too many words, it's really, it drives me crazy. It really drives me crazy. The best line that Frank and I were talking about this at one point was your line about the atom, which was...
He gets small.
Yeah, that's it. That's all you need to know about the atom. I get small. That's it.
On that note, thank you very much.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Sure.
Hi, my name is Sean.
Sean.
I wanted to know, after reading the last issue of Master Race, from beginning to end, how much did the pre-political climate and political climate today, did that affect the ending of Master Race with the additional issue, or did what you envisioned at the beginning turn out how it is today?
It stayed its course. The story was what it was. The politics in the Dark Knight series are always a backdrop, and as much as they seem absolutely relevant to the action, the stories are much more personal than that. And there's a literary term called the Greek chorus that goes back when in the Greek plays, there would be a chorus in the background that represented the audience and pretended to be the audience, which would encourage the audience to react to the play. So the media is playing that role in Dark Knight.
Thanks, guys.
Good question. Thank you.
Yeah, that was a really good question. One of the things that I noticed about DK3 is that it's largely a story about family, and I think that family supersedes politics. The politics is there. If you look for it, you can interpret it, but it's really about family. It's a story about family, which I think is really terrific.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Dennis.
Dennis.
Been a big fan since the 80s.
Thanks.
I loved your stuff, over the years. My first question is, for Mr. Miller, is I read in Marvel The Untold Story that you got mugged twice in New York.
Sure.
I was wondering, did that affect your writing of Daredevil when you were writing it? Like how you made it like really dark and like all these things happening, like, the drug use and that sort of thing?
Well, the main reason it was dark was because Klaus and I really liked to use a lot of black. But it was really, there's no doubt that my experiences in New York had a bunch to do with how violent that Daredevil was. But there's also a lot of it was that the comic book world was dramatically changing, because you got to understand that two things happened that kicked comics into high gear. And one created the other. The first thing that happened was Robert Crumb and the Underground Comics. And they opened up, they brought another generation, they kept a generation in comics. They opened up the content like crazy, and they created this system that created these stores. They all started as head shops. So they stopped selling bongs and they started selling comic books. And so it was all a piece of, a transition in terms of content, and we've been reflecting that straight along.
My other question is for Mr. Janson.
Sure.
Frank's art has changed over the years. I've noticed that in the first, like, you were first doing Daredevil, it was kind of, your art was more simple, and then, like, it got more complex as it went along. How did you deal with that, like, inking his work as it changed? Did Frank ever tell you, oh, no, I don't want it, like, that you're inking it all wrong or anything like that?
I don't think that ever
Did we ever
happened,
stop
we?
fighting? No,
We're still going at it.
No, it's not. No, it was so organic, and it still is. It's like that when the work we've done recently is both of us have changed. It doesn't look like what we used to do.
I do think, and Frank, jump in here, but I think it got simpler as time went on,
Yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah.
I think so too.
I mean, an important transition in Daredevil was when the book kicked into high gear and went from bi-monthly to monthly. All of a sudden, it was a shocking workload for me, and Klaus and I agreed to share the chores more evenly, and so I wasn't trying to do such complete drawings, and so so he became the equal partner in creating the black and white artwork. And it was no longer, his credit line changed, and it just became the two of us as a team. That was about the same time that you kicked in and started coloring the book. And the look of the book radically improved.
Yeah, it really.
That was when the partnership really nailed
it. The book really established a firm identity.
Yeah.
But I think, in a larger degree, in a larger sense, that I think as artists get older, and I put artists in, air quotes, you try to be simpler, more direct, and less noodly and less complicated. You want to be more direct, get your message across.
Well, you kind of know what you're doing, so
yeah.
Why use 3 lines when you can do it in 1?
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Carla. I'm a big fan of both of you guys.
Thank you.
My question is for both of you. You both worked on Marvel and DC Comics. What is your most challenging work you've done?
Getting a raise.
300.
The most challenging? I think any pencil job is really challenging, but also the most involving, the most interesting. Being able to tell a story is really hard. It's complicated.
And the larger answer is that it's the next one's the most challenging. It really is. That might sound like schlock to say, but it's the truth.
No, that's it. And also because one challenges oneself.
Oh, you got to.
Yeah. So there's a lot of truth to that. Yeah.
The day this job gets boring is, the day you start saying hack next to our name. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Thank
you're
you.
welcome.
How you doing? I'm Lou.
Hey, Lou.
Love the way series ended, Master Race.
Oh, thank you.
And the mini comic as well, with great, 2 great endings. I'm curious, as the years have gone on, this modern world now of social media, I'm curious how much you guys follow it with regards to your own work. The book came out yesterday, the final issue. Are you checking social media, what the fans are saying, what the critics are saying? Is that something you guys do immediately? And does that affect you, social media, all the thousands and thousands of people that have now reviewed the book in the last 24 hours?
I haven't followed it. I don't follow it. I won't follow it. I don't want to get confused.
I follow it a little bit. I'll go to some reviews and just see what the general number is. But I'm not on Facebook, and so I'm not really into social media. I actually kind of hate it. I think we both have enough confidence in our work that we don't need that. And frankly, at this point, I'm immune to it. Earlier on, negative reviews would really hurt. It doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
That's what I was curious about. at
Yeah,
this point. But
yeah.
at this point, good or bad, it really made a difference.
I don't know. It doesn't bother me now when people say something I did really stunk. But if everybody told me it stunk, I'd go, hey,
Yeah.
yeah, I must be doing something wrong here, you know. It's-
Thanks very much.
Oh, you're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Hey.
My name is Roberto.
Hey, Roberto.
I have an art question. I was 9 years old when my parents got me the complete Frank Miller Batman. And then that was...
And I told them not to do that. When they did that book, I said, oh, okay, I guess I'm done then. Here I had all these stories.
My parents got it to keep me quiet, I think, while they were shopping.
Okay.
And I remember opening it up, and excuse me, but I said, wow, this is ugly. This doesn't
Uh-huh.
look like the comics that I'm reading now.
Yep.
And it wasn't until I was 13, 14, started studying art and learning more about art that I really
Mhm.
appreciated it.
Mhm.
So I've always admired artists like Bill Sienkiewicz, Sam
Mhm.
Keith, Jock.
Sure.
the shirt.
Oh, yeah, not great shirt. Yeah.
What artists do you now temporarily like, or are impressed by, or like to see do work?
Boy, there's a lot of them.
I like, the guy that impresses me over and over all the time, especially his run on the X-Men, is Stuart Immonen. I think Stuart's, his facility, his ability to draw
I haven't seen his stuff.
anything.
I haven't seen his stuff.
He's just amazing. And great lighting, great figure work. I mean, he knows how to do pretty much everything. Good storyteller, action, great panel, page layouts. It's good.
Yeah.
I swipe a lot from him.
Well,
Real quick, Greg Capullo and Scott Snyder's run. Are you guys familiar with that on Batman?
I really liked Court of the Owls. I thought it was terrific. And then it went downhill after that. But it was good stuff. Really good. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.
Hello, Mr. Miller. Mr.
Hello.
Janson. Thank
Sir.
you very much for being here. Thank you, Midtown Comics,
Thank
for
you.
this opportunity. Thank you. My name is Javier. I'm originally from Spain, so you're going to notice an accent, maybe.
Sure.
Yeah, sure. So my question, it may be answered before, but it's not exactly the same. It's if you could choose one Marvel or DC villain or superhero that you think it's a product of its era, that is very outdated, ridiculous, corny, that it couldn't fit right now, but you see a potential for an updated, revamped, mature story for 2017 public.
Mhm.
Who one would be? I mean, I think Plastic Man would be a good example, but if you can, I don't know, you have another one?
Brother Power the Geek. No. Let's see. Well, we did kind of answer the question before, and I do. I tend to think about the characters that I'm burning to get my hands on, and so I bring up Superman a lot. And woman that way. Those characters are solid gold. But as far as ones that seem to be dated, none of them seem dated to me. Some of the Marvel ones are getting a little dusty because they all have the same origin. They all got bitten by a radioactive something or other.
I don't think the characters are dated, but I love to draw the Inhumans. I really like.
Oh yeah, they're cool.
Black Bolt and-
All the Kirby characters,
Yeah,
it's-
they are. Yeah. Yeah, that's right. New Gods, would be amazing to
Yeah.
draw. Yeah, stuff like that.
I mean, like say, if anything's dated, I'd say maybe the Silver Surfer, because it's it's just someone flying around and bemoaning his fate when he can
Yeah.
blow up planets anytime he wants to.
He does need updating, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
I would love to see that. So.
Yeah,
Thank you
that
very
would be
much.
cool.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey,
Hey.
I'm Sean. I two things about when the original Dark Knight came out. I remember thinking, this is really expensive. This was like my entire allowance.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
but
And
also.
thank you, by the way.
but I also thought.
Yeah, well, it kept you out of that candy store, didn't it? Huh?
Well,
Didn't play any pool that week, did you?
But I actually had the opposite reaction about the art. I was like, wow, this is completely different, and like you can do almost anything with comic books. So that's
Great.
that aside. But my question, I wanted to ask you about the original inspiration for the original Dark Knight.
Mhm.
Like, there's about 50 years of like history, lore, writing
Sure.
for Batman up until that
Mhm.
point. So where did the where did the inspiration come to take the character in that new direction? And then what was the mood and what was the reaction like in the DC offices when you guys were working?
Okay, there's no way to answer this question without giving you a name again. Dick Giordano. he called me up and asked me to have lunch with him, and he said he wanted to talk to me about Batman. Oh boy, I might just be entering the big time here. And he said here we got the most popular character in comics, and he's not selling all that well. He's not selling well at all. And he said, so you got any ideas? And I kind of went home and I thought about it, and I was about to turn the ripe old age of 30 at the time, and I really didn't like that. And so I was walking around, I was thinking, I'm going to make Batman older than me, so old I can never be that old. I'm going to make him 50. So I started structuring about that of him having been retired because Robin got murdered, and then coming back and being looking like the old Dick Sprang version, but with a much wrinklier costume, and sort of half Batman, half Dirty Harry.
And how did everyone react to your proposal? And when you started turning in pages, what did they say?
Well, different people had different reactions. Different people had different reactions. No, I mean, it's. I'll tell you that Danny O'Neill was not particularly thrilled with the stuff, but Dick Giordano and Jeanette Kahn backed it every step of the way, and the rest of DC were absolutely wonderful about it, when I proposed the format, they loved the idea because I mean at first I'd wanted to do no I'm sorry I was about to take credit for something I didn't deserve it for. What I wanted to do it originally in the graphic novel format, and Paul Levitz said that he thought it would do better if it were the size of a comic book, because at the time all the comics were sold on spinners across the country. And so the format was created. It was called the Dark Knight format. Later they renamed it something else, Prestige or something. But that format was created for Dark Knight, and Paul was brilliant in that decision because the market was absolutely ready for it. And the first week it came out, it sold out, and it sold out, and it sold out, and it went into 3 printings within a month.
You know, one of the fond memories.
By the way, I wanted to comment.
Yep,
sorry,
please go.
the format was one of the big things that sold it, along with the content.
That's absolutely right. I mean, it was a synergy.
Yeah. So Paul Levitz had a lot to do with it.
But one of the fond memories that I have of that time is that DC was surprised and unprepared for the amount of attention that Dark Knight received, and bordering on panic at some
Oh, as a matter of fact, no, it did not border. It leapt right into panic. It was. There were people who were very thrilled, and there were people who called me up to complain. But the biggest panic was that they couldn't keep it in stock, and they had never gone back to press before, and so they had to have Jeanette Kahn had to make the decision, and she was somewhere out of the state. She might have been in California at the time, working on one of the movie deals or something, and she had to make the decision from there.
To go to a second
printing, and then but the third one was automatic once they ran out of those, because it all happened so fast. It was a whirlwind. It was a kick.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And when Frank was on the cover of Time magazine, that I thought.
On the cover.
And then the follow-up is along similar lines.
And that wasn't Time magazine anyway. It was in the post office. It was on the wall.
Along similar lines, this newest volume, you know, how it came together, what the feeling in the DC offices was like, and generally speaking.
You know, in a very general way, extremely supportive, but
Like herding cats.
Yeah. Like herding cats. You know, the thing, and Frank, jump in, but, you know, I would say that the four of us, Andy and Brian and Frank and myself, we had a great time. This was a really, really fun group of people to work with. So there's no complaints, I think, in terms of the experience associated with this DK3.
Well, Brother Power the Geek wasn't in it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure, you're welcome.
Hi guys.
Hey.
Nick. My question is, well, I was wondering what it was like working with two creative powerhouses, Brian Azzarello and Andy Kubert, on a character that you had worked on alone, well, with Lynn, but how did it differ? Was it easier or harder? Yeah.
It was different. It was different. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was lots of spirited conversations. You know, but ideas were just battered around. We met in my studio a lot and talked over all kinds of things. It was such a big playground. You can't help but have fun with all those fun characters they have, and you get to make up new nifty ones along the way.
It's just fun. I can't tell you anything more than that. You know, I mean, it really is. Just, you know, being able to. Let me say this: nobody wakes up in the morning and says, "Boy, I cannot wait to do a crappy comic book today," right? You know, and so when you have the opportunity to work with people that are on the same wavelength and have ambition and want to do something really good, that's the best working environment that you could possibly ask for, and that's what we got on DK3. It was really a lot of fun.
Good, thank you. Hi, I'm Danny.
Danny?
Good to see you guys. My childhood thanks you for Daredevil. By the way.
You bet.
Stick for me was like this amazing part of Daredevil. I loved every time he appeared. I was so excited for Stick.
Thanks.
I don't know. I was curious how you guys felt about Batman v Superman the film.
I like the book better.
You know, look, I've seen it a couple of times, and
I haven't.
Oh, you're a liar.
Saw it once.
Yeah, I saw it once. Sorry. We went to the screening at the premiere, right?
Yeah.
Listen, I'm okay with it. You know,
Yeah, and
there
me
are-
too.
there
Me
are-
too. I just had to be sarcastic.
Yeah,
Look, I'm repeating myself for the 1000th time here, but it's the best way I've been able to say this, is that Batman and Superman are both like super balls. That they're like hardened rubber. You can throw them against the wall, against the ceiling, against the floor. You can't break them. That worked. Dark Knight worked. The Atom West. So it's just they all work.
Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Fifth row. Luigi back.
Hey guys.
Hey.
Hello there.
Mr. Janson. Thank you both. My name's Tom.
Tom.
Quick question. You guys have obviously been in the industry for a while, and you've probably seen a lot of changes. Nowadays, there's these basically e-comics, downloading stuff through that. Whether through the medium or the content, is there anything that you hope comics will dive into, in the coming years?
I'll tell you what I'm alarmed at, from an artist's point of view. I'm alarmed at the prevalence of digital drawing and all artists using the same software, because the art is starting to look the same. And I worry about that. I worry about the sterility of using technology to create art. Some people can do it and get away with it and make it work. But it seems to me like 75, 80%, and I see a lot of art, 75 to 80% of the work all looks the same. You can't tell the difference between one artist to another because they're using the same software. The buildings, the backgrounds look the same. So I'm a little alarmed at that. I think that comics work best when they are very individualistic and an expression of the individual rather than software. That's my lecture.
Yeah, where I want to see him go is quite plainly everywhere. All bets should be off at this point. I would complain that there's still circling around the superhero center too much. That's all well and good. I don't mean, I'm not one of those people who thinks there's anything bad about superheroes. Goodness knows I'd be the last person to dare to. But there's a zillion different kinds of stories to do, and I'm most intrigued by going in new directions.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome. Sure.
Hi, Mr. Janson and Mr. Miller.
Hey.
Hello there.
My name is Connor. Thank
Connor.
you guys for being here.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for Midtown for
Sure.
allowing me to be here. So my question is, in The Dark Knight Returns, your take in the 80s was iconic, especially with the issues surrounding that society. So my question revolves around how you had to evolve your take on The Dark Knight into today's society, and whether you believe it's more relevant or still as relevant as it was in the 80s.
Well, how I got to that approach to the story was to take a walk and see New York in the 80s, which is what I tried to make Gotham City a reflection of. And and so the place to go is to look at what's going on from time to time. Not just in my city, but as I travel and everything. And it's just the same way that it's our job to keep in touch with fashions and everything else. With Dark Knight, one of the things I started playing with, and it ended up being a real source of joy, was the political parody throughout it. So it's the attempt was to have comics rejoin the real world, and sit next to like Doonesbury and stuff in terms of it having some relationship to the world we lived in, just as they used to have in the 40s and the 50s, and even in the 60s. But somewhere in the 70s, we just lost touch with, there was a period where it lost touch, and it always became about the previous decade rather than the one we were in.
You know what comes to mind, and I don't know if this answers your question, but what comes to mind is, I was here in the 70s and in the 80s, and New York was a survival of the fittest. It was really Darwinism at its best.
Yeah.
And in some ways, maybe Dark Knight had a little bit of that.
Oh
in
yeah,
it. Do you think so?
All over the place.
So,
Yeah.
well, there goes your walk, right?
Well, but
Yeah.
but also it's so that was Batman's first night back was him just stomping all these muggers and rapists and things who were on the prowl. And it was just a catharsis of his first run.
That was a great scene, by the way.
Which one?
The first 20 pages.
Oh yeah, where he just goes berserk. He's just
And the cop cars.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was great.
Thank you, Bob.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Fun. How are you guys doing today?
Good,
Good.
thanks.
I'm going to read because I had 3 of my questions taken already. So
Okay.
Right? Art as a tool in storytelling. You mentioned that artists may naturally simplify techniques over time to get a message across, right? The other end of that philosophy are artists that make name by pouring as much time and using as much time and detail into their works. Have you had any conflicts in that area when doing your current collaborations or in your separate assignments and such?
Between Andy and myself, and Frank and myself, I think we talk about it, but
Yeah.
there is not a conflict. I don't.
Do you
experience
consider
any.
physical violence a conflict?
Not with you.
Jay! Done! I'm going home now!
We love you, Frank.
Discussions where, like, one person would say, I want more of this in this area, and then another person.
I can only speak of with being Klaus. Is that yeah, we talk things over from time to time, but the conversations aren't that long. It's like I was seeing this kind of this way, and then he'd say, I think I'm going to go chunky here. And I go, okay, Klaus. And he goes off and does it.
One of the benefits of having worked together for so long is that I think a lot of that is out of the way.
Oh, yeah,
and,
yeah.
And we kind of, one of the things that really happened in Daredevil, which I'm extremely grateful for, is that Frank trusted me.
Oh, yeah.
And I trusted him. So there was a relationship built on trust. We don't need to really talk too much about it, other than that.
No, it was kind of amazing, the whole run on Daredevil. We didn't talk all that much. We'd hook up every once in a while,
Right.
or have a phone conversation
Right.
or something. And now it's actually developed to the point where when Klaus and I work together, we might say a few words back and forth. Mostly, I want to see the surprise. I want to see what he's going to do.
Interesting. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
You're welcome. Thanks.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for our Q&A. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And thank you, of course, again, to Frank and Klaus for coming by. We had
Thanks.
a wonderful time.
Thanks,
For everybody watching, I'm sure that they thoroughly enjoyed it. I know we've got thousands of people that are watching and really love hearing from two of the best in the business. So thank you. And for everybody here at Midtown, thank you for tuning in. And have a good day.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot.